This is the second of the Unit 4 Biology Revision videos, and this is going to be looking at photosynthesis and limiting factors. At this point, feel free to pause the video to complete this activity. This can be used as a revision activity to see what you've remembered, and also as a diagnostic activity to see what you need to revise. Unlike animals, plants cannot acquire energy from ready-made food. They undergo a process called photosynthesis that allows them to make their own food. There are two chemicals that are needed for this process. The first one is carbon dioxide. This is found in the air and enters the plant via the leaves through pores called stomata. The second chemical is water, which is found in the soil and is absorbed via the roots of the plant. Although these two chemicals are needed in the chemical reaction of photosynthesis, other aspects are also needed. These are sunlight from the sun and chlorophyll, which is the green pigment found in the leaves and stems of plants. The sun's energy is trapped in the chlorophyll, and this allows the plant to turn the CO2 and water into carbohydrates such as glucose and waste oxygen. This is the word equation for photosynthesis. We've got the carbon dioxide and water changing into glucose and oxygen due to this chemical reaction. The chlorophyll and the sunlight, which we said were involved earlier, are not within this word equation because they are involved but do not get used up within the reaction. And below you can see that this is the symbol equation. We've got CO2 plus H2O equals C6H12O6 plus O2. Now it needs to be balanced. If you want any help on how to balance equations, then come and see me or one of the other science teachers. But here in this instance, all of them apart from glucose have got 6 in front of the formula. This slide shows some of the uses of glucose within the plant. Some of it is used for respiration. Do not forget that although plants undergo photosynthesis, they also do respire. The rest of the glucose that's not used in respiration have these other uses. So we've got things like forming cellulose to form the structure of the cell walls, for protein, used in food storage in starch, fats and oils, and sucrose. So, there are advantages of storing glucose as starch. It can be converted back to glucose to be used in respiration. Plants cannot photosynthesize at night, but they can respire all the time. If they're respiring at night, the glucose is not going to be readily available, so being able to convert it back from starch is really useful. It's also insoluble, so it cannot dissolve in water and leave the cell where it's stored. This is really important because glucose, being a sugar, could do that, and it can affect osmosis, as shown here. The process of photosynthesis occurs in 2 stages. We've got the first stage where we've got sunlight, hits water and splits it into oxygen and hydrogen ions. These hydrogen ions then bond with carbon dioxide, and these two bonding together produces glucose. Any leftover oxygen, for example here from the splitting of water, and any leftover in this reaction to produce glucose, is given off as waste oxygen. This is a picture of a leaf during the daytime. We've got carbon dioxide being taken into the plant and used in photosynthesis. It produces oxygen. Some of it is given out as a waste product, some of it is used as for respiration, which produces carbon dioxide. So we've got both of these processes happening during the day in the plant. However, at night time, photosynthesis cannot occur because there is no light. But respiration does occur, where we've got the oxygen taken in from outside and carbon dioxide given out as a waste product. Here are some questions for you to try. If you would like to do so, feel free to pause this video and have a go. So plants grow better at the time of year where we've got summer and spring. And this is because the amount of light is higher and the temperature is higher. The amount of light being more means that we've got more light energy for photosynthesis to happen, and the warmth speeds up the reactions of photosynthesis. So we're going to look at the effect of the availability of light, the amount of carbon dioxide and temperature on the rate of photosynthesis. So this is a glass house where we can grow plants artificially. Artificial light is used, so we've got maximum amount of light available to the plant. Temperature is monitored so that it's nice and warm for the plants so that the rate of photosynthesis is high, and also things like burning fuels can produce extra carbon dioxide that can help plant growth. The first factor that can limit the rate of photosynthesis that we're going to look at is light intensity. Now it's really obvious that as the light intensity increases, so does the rate of photosynthesis up to around this point. Here it begins to level off. Now that shows that at this point there is something else that is limiting the rate of photosynthesis, probably the temperature or the amount of carbon dioxide available. When we look at carbon dioxide, this is one of the chemicals that is needed in the reaction. Therefore, the more carbon dioxide there is, the faster the rate of photosynthesis. But again, that is all dependent on there being plenty of light and a warm temperature. Carbon dioxide is usually the factor that is in lowest supply, so it's often what we call the limiting factor for photosynthesis. Temperature affects how quickly the enzymes work. The hotter it is, the faster the rate of photosynthesis will be because of the enzymes. That again is provided we've got lots of carbon dioxide and light available. However, if it becomes too hot, enzymes become denatured and photosynthesis will stop. So I've mentioned limiting factor before when we talked about carbon dioxide. A limiting factor is the factor that is at the lowest level. So for example, if you've got light, temperature and carbon dioxide, and you've got a good amount of light, good amount of carbon dioxide, but the temperature is low, then this will be the limiting factor. If you've got a warm temperature, a good amount of carbon dioxide and very little light, then the light will be the limiting factor preventing a maximum rate of photosynthesis. However, carbon dioxide, as I said earlier, is often the factor that's in shortest supply, so that is often the factor that limits the rate of photosynthesis. If this carbon dioxide is the limiting factor, we can increase it. The increase of that would increase the rate of photosynthesis, and that will continue to increase until one of the other factors, for example light, becomes the limiting factor. This graph gives an example of what a graph would look like for a limiting factor. Now here we've got light intensity at the bottom and rate of photosynthesis up the side. As the light intensity increases, we get an increase in the rate of photosynthesis. However, you can see that we've got two different lines. At this point here, they branch off and one is steeper than the other and the other levels off. We can see that these two lines have got different temperatures. This one here that levels off first is 20 degrees Celsius, and this one here that is steeper and levels off later is 30 degrees Celsius. So we can see here that if light intensity is high and the temperature is higher, we'll get a higher rate of photosynthesis. In this instance, any higher temperature, if you get too high, it will denature the enzymes. So here, at high light intensity and a warm temperature, the limiting factor will be the amount of carbon dioxide. If the amount of carbon dioxide increased, then this line here would be steeper and level off much higher. So to finish off this revision video on photosynthesis and limiting factors, I've bobbed in an exam question. Feel free to pause the video and have a go. If you need any help with it, feel free to come and see me about it.